Welcome to Retire with Purpose, a show specifically designed to help you maximize your financial confidence in retirement. Casey Weade is the CEO and Chief Visionary of Howard Bailey Financial, a certified financial planner and Wall Street Journal best-selling author. He's your host on Retire with Purpose.
Hey, I'm Casey Weade, and we believe in retirement strategies that are driven by meaning and purpose. Join us this week and every week as we discuss planning for your best retirement, pinpointing your purpose, building a rock-solid financial plan, and unpacking trending topics that could impact your financial future. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Retire with Purpose, the science of retiring with confidence, the art of living with purpose. This is your host, Casey Weade. Joining me, my good friend and co-host, Marshall Johnson, here with me.
Hey.
And this is your opportunity to discuss retirement with us. Whether you're at retirement, in retirement, near retirement, or you're just seeking that coveted job optional status, you've found yourself a home. We're going to have a wide-ranging discussion today, as we always do. You'll also have the opportunity to submit your questions to us throughout the conversation. Just going over to retirewithpurpose.com. Bottom right-hand corner of the screen gives you a place to submit questions to us. Today, we're going to be discussing how you can make sure that the money you've saved will last your whole retirement. We'll be discussing the latest in retirement income strategies. And of course, we have to hit on Bitcoin a little bit here and there. We also are going to talk Social Security taxes, pension taxes, and bear market factors. What exactly leads to a bear market? Where do we find ourselves right now? We also have a very special guest coming on with us later in the show. We have the founder of the Institute of Integral Retirement Planning.
Woo, that's a mouthful.
He is also a fiduciary life insurance analyst. So you've never met a man like Dick Weber. So he analyzes life insurance policies independently to provide you the best solution and does not accept a commission. So it'll be really interesting to hear what he has to say about life insurance industry as a whole and what you should be thinking about right now when it comes to those old life insurance policies you have sitting in the drawer at home. But off the top, we're going to be covering an article that came to us from Yahoo Finance. It is titled, How to Set Smart Goals for Your Investments. And this is an article that was included in our Weekend Reading for Retirees email series. What's that? Well, you'd know if you signed up. You get one email every single Friday from us. Marshall and I do the research. We put together 4 articles on trending topics in the retirement planning space, financial, non-financial, all designed to help make better decisions in this next phase of your life. All you can do to sign up is go to retirewithpurpose.com. First name and email will get the ball rolling. We're going to highlight this article for you right now.
Right now. Yeah, we got, George Doran, management consultant, created that SMART goal system. It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and relevant, and time-bound. And this is a concept that we've seen over time, Casey, but I think it applies really well to having to your investment plan.
Yeah. Well, and I think the part that sometimes we get wrong about investing is we want it to be simple, and that's great. We also have the problem that we overcomplicate things. It's essential for you to have a strategy. It doesn't need to be or mean complexity, but you have to have a sense of what you want to achieve and exactly how you want to get there. If you don't have a map and you don't have GPS, then how do you ever expect to get to your destination? You have to be very specific if you ever want to reach a goal. And that's the first stop of setting SMART goals. It's specificity. That is being clear and specific with your financial goals. And I think there's a great example of this, which is, what do you want each portfolio that you have to achieve? Mm-hmm. And, if you have all of your money stuffed away in one account, an IRA, 401k, maybe it's a brokerage account somewhere. If you have all of those funds in one place, maybe even 2 places,
right?
How do you ever expect to know exactly what all those different holdings are going to accomplish for you? How is that one bucket of dollars going to take care of your emergency funds, your income needs for the rest of your life, inflation care needs, long-term care needs, your estate planning dollars, the dollars you want to leave behind. And that's really one of the integral parts of our planning process, is getting very specific about what the job is, what the role is of each one of the dollars you've worked so hard to save, so that we can most efficiently get from point A to point B, but even more so that you can see the future, and it's more likely to come to fruition if you're clear about the specific goals of each one of your dollars.
Yeah, I love that, because it's too often we'll sit down with a family that's just kind of, it's vague. It's their financial plan. It's their investment portfolio. It's supposed to achieve all those different goals. But what he's talking about here is getting real specific. Instead of just saying, hey, this is my retirement account, change that to, I want to retire by 65. And even better yet, I want to retire at 65 with $85,000 a year in income, and what's going to be necessary to get me there. So very specific goals.
And you can even get more specific to that. As you're building a retirement income budget, you step into retirement, you say, I want $85,000 a year in income. Let's dig in a little bit deeper, because you have different expenses that you're going to want to pay attention to. Some that'll increase at a higher rate of inflation than others. Some will actually decrease over your lifetime. So the more specific you can get, the more likely it is that you're going to have a sustainable income in retirement. So we have the S in SMART goals. What about M in SMART goals? That's measurable. Is it measurable? Measurable? Who knows?
Yeah, it's measurable. We need to know if we're on track, and we can track that along the way. So we want to make sure it's measurable, instead of just saying that, hey, we're going to save for a house. Well, that's fairly vague. You need to know, save $50,000 for a down payment, and then you can see how close you are to that goal, something that you can easily measure.
Yeah, and this reminded me of a past listener question, where the question was, how do I know when it's time to throw in the towel on an investment strategy? How long do I go in order to understand if this investment strategy is working or not? And the article said, once you've set a goal, how will you know if you're achieving it? Well, you're not going to know if you're achieving it or you're not achieving it if you haven't set up metrics for success. If you don't know what the metrics are, if you don't know what it's supposed to do and what the time frame is for it to accomplish that goal, then you're going to wonder. You're going to have uncertainty about your investment strategy and if it's actually working or not, because you didn't put any measures in place in order to determine if it's working. And eventually that gets you off track of actually reaching your goals. If you don't have that measure, then you're not going to regularly be checking in and measuring its progress.
Yeah, after measuring, we've got A for achievable. And this is one, Casey, that I think is very relevant to financial planning or retirement planning, because we get people that come in every week that say, hey, can I retire now? Can I retire in 2 years? Can I retire in 5 years? We need to know what's achievable, and are we even being realistic?
Yeah, well, and I think, originally, this whole SMART formula came from a popular management consultant, George Doran. Yeah. And, what Doran said about the A is that in the original formula, it wasn't actually achievable in SMART goals. It was actually assignable. It was assignable because it was really written for business leaders or managers, because a manager needs to set goals that he can help his team manage as he delegates those projects out. What are you doing when you hire a financial planner or a financial advisor? You're assigning them a job. You need to assign them a very specific and measurable job as well. You need to let them know exactly what you're going to be measuring their performance by over time. And I think it's also important to keep in mind that if we don't make those goals achievable and we're assigning unachievable goals to a financial advisor or an investment portfolio or a mutual fund manager, then you're going to be led down the road to dissatisfaction. And ultimately, highly likely, it's going to put you in a place of failure as you continue to chase those returns. So it has to be achievable. And the R, it has to be, Is it realistic? Is it relevant? I think the R really makes the most sense for this to be a relevant goal. You need to have, in my mind, a strong why for everything that you do, whether that's in business or that's in an investment strategy. If you're setting a goal, there has to be a strong why. You have to have a goal that you've put in place that you actually need to meet, that you're driven to reach that ultimate goal, which is why in our planning process, we always start with purpose and meaning. The why is the most important part that we want to start with.
That's right, Casey. That leads us right into the T in SMART, which is time bound. And he says here that nothing focuses the mind better than a deadline.
Yeah, and we've talked about this in past episodes, and it's called time boxing, really.
Yes.
I think we can put a little time box around our goals, and whatever that might be. You want to retire with an income of $85,000 a year? All right, well, let's put a time frame on that. You want to retire at 65 with an income of $85,000 a year. Maybe you've decided that you need long-term care coverage. Well, let's put a time box around that. In 6 months, we're going to have a solution to our long-term care issue. Maybe you're concerned about rising taxes and you have yet to do anything about it. Well, let's go through your SMART goals. Let's be very specific about what you're trying to achieve when it comes to tax reduction and tax planning. Let's put a measure in place to make sure that the tax strategy you're putting in place is actually working over time. Let's make it achievable. You're probably still going to pay, say, some taxes, right? So let's be reasonable about the tax reduction measures that we're putting in place. And is that relevant? Why do you want to reduce your taxes? If you're only reducing your taxes for the heck of it, then what's the point? If you're reducing your taxes because that will allow you to do some of those big goals and dreams that you had out there because you have excess income, then now we're talking, right? And let's put a time box around that. So those are SMART goals. That's how you should set good goals in retirement. And right now, if you feel like you're just floating through life with, hey, I want to retire someday, I'm trying to save as much money as I can, or, we're trying to cut our expenses, but I really don't know where we're cutting our expenses. I'd like to save money on taxes. I'll worry about that at the end of the year. And you haven't actually put specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound goals around those things. That's why we're here. We're here to help you with those things. And right now we're offering a complimentary financial review to do that with you. You'll meet with an independent financial advisor on our team. You can do that in person. We'll walk you through those goals that you have and get very specific about those goals to make sure that you achieve those goals. It could be around inflation concerns, healthcare emergencies, stock market crashes, rising taxes. In short, we're here to take the guesswork out of financial planning for you and make sure you're prepared for whatever comes your way next. It can take just 30 minutes to get started. So for the next 10 callers, they call 866-482-9559, 866-482-9559. We're offering a comprehensive financial review at no obligation. Stick around because after this short break, we're going to be answering questions from you about Bitcoin, Social Security, and are we in a bear market? Are we headed towards a bear market? What's a bear market? We'll answer that question and more when we come back.
You're listening to Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson. This is Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson.
Welcome back to Retire with Purpose, the science of retiring with confidence, the art of living with purpose. This is your host, Casey Weade. Joining me, my good friend and co-host, Marshall Johnson, here with me.
Hey, hey.
And this is your opportunity to ask us questions. So if you have questions, we have answers. Just go on to retirewithpurpose.com, bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Drop your question in there or just email it to info@howardbailey.com. Or, hey, feel free to give us a call, 866-482-9559, 866-482-9559. We receive questions throughout the week. We'll grab a handful of those questions. We'll cover them with you right here on the show. And we have our first question today. It comes from Anthony. And Anthony says, there's a lot of talk about Bitcoin, but I can't tell whether or not it's a sustainable investment worth pursuing. What are your thoughts?
Ooh, well, hey, Anthony, that's a great question. By sustainable, is it a sustainable investment? Is it going to sustain for 10, 15, 20 years? I think the technology will. Is it going to be Bitcoin? Is it still going to be the king of cryptocurrency? Maybe not. But, I think
we thought Kodak would still be around, right?
Yeah, right. Kodak, Fujifilm. I think the technology, the blockchain technology is certainly revolutionizing lots of industries. The technology is wonderful. It's going to have many applications across many different industries and sectors. And you know what? It's a little bit like speculating these days. And if you want to include some in your portfolio, we kind of put it in the same bucket as commodities or gold or currencies. That's fine. Have 5-10%. If you want to gamble, go right ahead. But I tell you what, Casey, Bitcoin at the time of this recording has got nearly $1 trillion market cap. I don't think anything like that is going to disappear overnight, but it doesn't mean it can't drop in half in a very short period of time.
Yeah, it wasn't, but a couple months ago it was in half of its current value. And Marshall, it makes me think, I love what you said about commodities. It makes me think of an article written by Christine Benz, also a quote that was embedded in the article from Warren Buffett saying, Charlie says we have 3 boxes, the in box, the out box, and the 2 hard box. You don't have to do everything well. At the Olympics, if you're in the 100 meters well, you don't have to do the shot put.
Right.
And the article is basically sharing, hey, you need to make sure you're really scrutinizing what you know and what you have time for and what's actually important and relevant to you. And that makes me think of individual stock trading and something that my dad had told me years ago. I know I'd shared with him back during the 2008 period of time. I'm saying, oh man, I just made 100% on Bank of America.
Sure.
And he goes, oh yeah, how much money did you make? $500. And he's like, great. Is that going to change your life? No, not at all. How much time do you spend on it? I probably a couple hours a day. Then that's probably not worth your time because it could be better spent somewhere else. And I think if you look at those different areas of the market that you don't understand or are going to take too much of your time in order to fully grasp, then it probably belongs in your too hard pile. Now, some of those things you might still want as part of your portfolio, then go out and find an expert to help you build that into your overall strategy. And Marshall, as you said, with Bitcoin being likened to a commodity, I think you can go along with what Christine Benz said in that world about commodities. She shared it applies perfectly to Bitcoin. It's impossible to know what the intrinsic value of commodities should be unless you have a crystal ball that peers into global demand for oil, lumber, agricultural products, and the same thing could be said about Bitcoin. No such orb exists, and that reduces commodities, that reduces Bitcoin to a speculative instrument. It's not an investment. Moreover here, investors' timing in commodities and Bitcoin hasn't been all that great. The extreme volatility of commodities and Bitcoin makes them imperfect inflation hedges. So if your goal here is to offset, say, inflation, well, it might not be the best place to go because you could buy the investment out of the box and lose half of its value. Is that a good inflation hedge? So think about the why and think about how much time you have. Is it in an in box? Is it an out box? Is it in your too hard pile? And I think for most, it should be in their too hard pile.
Right. And if you get, you're going to take a flyer, it's a speculative bet, you want to roll the dice, then feel free. But just know what the specific investment is there for and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I enjoy owning some Bitcoin because it's fun. It's a learning experience, but it's fun. And it's not something I'll spend a lot of time on.
Yeah. Absolutely. Next up, we've got Denise. Denise says, Casey, I'm newly retired and will be receiving a small pension and Social Security. Will I have to pay taxes on this income?
Well, Denise, it really depends. So it depends how much income that you're actually generating in retirement. And when we say income, it's not just your gross income. It's not even your adjusted gross income. It's not your taxable income. First, we need to determine what is known as your combined income. So that is your AGI, or your adjusted gross income, plus your tax-free interest, so your municipal bond income, et cetera, plus half of your Social Security benefits. That equals your combined income. Right. So maybe your adjusted gross income is $10,000 a year and your Social Security benefits are $20,000, then you have a combined income of $20,000. And if you are an individual or married, you're under the limit of which you'll have to pay taxes on any of those Social Security benefits. Now, if instead you're still generating $100,000 out of your pension, and then you've got $30,000 in Social Security, right, now you have $115,000 in combined income, you're going to pay taxes on 85% of those benefits. If you're married, that's over $44,000, you'll pay up to $85,000 in taxes on your benefits. This is a really important element of a retirement plan because it's not about how much Social Security you see on your statement. It's not about the gross Social Security benefit. It's about the net. It's not about, hey, I'm getting $1,000 a month in a pension. Who cares? What are you actually going to net? It's not about the gross. It's about the net. And if you don't have a plan that projects forward, one, what that taxation is going to be, and you don't have a plan to reduce that amount of taxation that you're going to pay and increase your net income, if that's not a conversation you're having on an ongoing basis, then give us a call. We'll have that conversation with you. We'll put those projections together for you and show you how to increase your net throughout retirement. Just call us at 866-482-9559.
Whenever I get a question about Social Security taxation, I always think of a client that walked into my office steaming mad, and he was not a current client of mine, but he became a client because he didn't realize his Social Security could ever be taxable. In this scenario, he had a pension and Social Security, and he wasn't paying taxes or very little taxes on that income. But guess what? He had IRAs and 401ks, and when he became 70 and a half, he had to start taking his required minimum distributions, and all of a sudden, Casey, he started to pay a lot more taxes on his Social Security, and he was really upset because he didn't have a plan to deal with it. Understanding the taxation of your Social Security should be a big part of your plan.
Our last question comes from Charles, and Charles, good old Chuck, says, can you explain what sort of factors lead up to a bear market? What are some things investors need to be aware of?
Ooh, well, I'm sure Casey's going to get to this, but hopefully your plan is set up that it doesn't matter whether it's a bull market or a bear market. You shouldn't have to watch the markets for indicators if you've got a good plan. But you know what? If you Google these sorts of things, there's some things that you can look for. We've got falling corporate earnings, underperforming low PE stocks, lackluster economic growth, inverted yield curves, tightening credit conditions, but the bottom line is there's no tried and true warning bell that's always going to signal a bear market is on the horizon. And some of these articles I'm Googling right here have been saying that we're nearing a bear market for 3+ years.
Yeah, the best analysts and economists in the world consistently get this wrong. It's one thing if there aren't any outliers. If we never have a black swan moment like a COVID, if we never have a financial crisis, a mortgage crisis, if we never have a tech bubble pop or a 9/11 incident, then it's fairly easy to predict the bear markets and the bull markets because they do come and go in cycles. Those aren't really the issues you need to look out for in retirement. It's not the bear market. It's not the bull market. It's not these cycles that we know naturally ebb and flow. It's the black swan moments. And those are the ones that you remember, right? Those are the ones that you never forget. The cycles in the market are natural, but your retirement plan has to be prepared no matter where we're currently at. And you could say today, hey, we're in a great economy. We have an accelerating economy. We have high employment levels. We have high disposable income. We have high productivity. We have high business profits. You could say all those things today, but that doesn't mean that tomorrow we couldn't have a bear market. It doesn't matter if those things lead up to it or not. we're in a great position right now to have a bull market continued for some time, but we never know what those outliers are actually going to be. And that's what you have to have a plan that's going to prepare you for in retirement, that, hey, it doesn't matter what happens next, a bear market, a bull market. We're not in the business of predicting what's going to happen in the market next week, next year, 5 years, 10 years. And we will give you a written guarantee that the market will do one of those things. It'll be a bull market, it'll be a bear market. But another thing that we'll share with you is we'll show you how to succeed no matter what happens next. And if that's not the kind of plan that you have, then give us a call today for a complimentary financial review. We'll walk you through all of those issues, remove those from your plate, and make sure you're on a better path, a more confident path for your future. We'll walk you through inflation, healthcare emergencies, rising taxes, your Social Security decisions. So give us a call. You can meet with an independent financial planner on our team, either in person or through a video meeting. It could take 30 minutes for us to take the guesswork out of financial planning for you. So give us a call right now at 866-482-9559, 866-482-9559. We're offering a comprehensive financial review at no obligation. Stick around, because after this short break, we're going to be getting together with Dick Weber, who is a self-described life insurance salesman converted to a fiduciary financial planner that does fiduciary planning, fee-only planning for life insurance clients. So if you're afraid of buying life insurance just because the agent's going to earn a commission and you're looking for a more unbiased approach, these are the types of guests that we like to bring on the show. Individuals that are looking at financial planning and the tools that are available to us without a concern for anything but the client's best well-being. So stick around. We'll be back after the short break.
You're listening to Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson. This is Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson.
Welcome to Retire with Purpose, the science of retiring with confidence, the art of living with purpose. It's your host, Casey Weade. Joining me, my good friend and co-host, Marshall Johnson, here with me.
Hey.
And we have another very special guest. We have Dick Weber joining us here shortly. Dick joined us for episode number 246 of the Retire with Purpose podcast. You can listen to this episode on any of your iTunes, any device that you have iTunes on. You can listen to it on Stitcher. You can listen to it on our site at retirewithpurpose.com. Just click on the podcast tab, and you can listen to all 250 of the episodes that we have out there. Dick Weber is a long-time life insurance specialist. He's also an author of a book titled Thriving Beyond Midlife, which was actually the original reason that I invited Dick Weber on the show, because I thought the Thriving Beyond Midlife book was a really powerful read. But I quickly found out that Dick had a lot to offer in other areas of the financial planning world. He's actually a 50-year veteran of the life insurance industry. So he's seen it all angles of life insurance, all capabilities, all the changes, regulatory changes. He's coached advisors and built a business around integrity and creating a fiduciary standard for life insurance agents across the country. He joined us on the podcast to discuss the often skewed version or view that many individuals have of life insurance, why it's developed sometimes a negative reputation or just a boring one. Life insurance, I really want to talk about that. I think it'll surprise you. And amongst some of these, he talks about how it can be leveraged as another asset class in your portfolio. But before we get into that, I want to share a clip from our discussion where Dick talks about his role today, what he really does when he's helping a client work through this process, and the concept of leveraging life insurance as a portfolio asset, not just buying term, not just buying whole life, but looking at your life insurance selections as a portfolio, much like you might look at your investment allocations as a portfolio.
My role is to simply help the client self-discover, and we've got a number of tools that we've used to help the client realize they may have a particular asset allocation. I'm sure you're saving money for the future, retire in the style to which you'd like to become accustomed, is how I put it. And you have a certain asset allocation because you have a certain risk tolerance that you've discussed with your financial planner. And that risk tolerance is what drives how you'll invest currently in the market. That same risk tolerance may or may not be appropriate for life insurance because it's life insurance. I think we all recognize that to the extent that if we do buy insurance to protect our families against premature death or premature disability, or for the resolution of taxes or equalizing legacies or taking care of children who may need extra care if you're not there financially to provide that care. Those are all the reasons people might buy life insurance. Now the issue is what type of policies, and frankly, my approach is what type of policies. I like developing portfolios of policies, just like people have portfolios for growing wealth. There's synergy in different kinds of things that when brought together work better together than any one of the single parts. So I think that's really the difference. It's not about any particular kind of policy. It's about helping you self-discover risk tolerance and then risk tolerance as it applies to, in my terms, developing a portfolio of policies that make sense for your objective.
You know, what I really liked about that was just this portfolio concept, this portfolio of policies, because so often what I find is that someone's went to one agent that sells one type of policy. So maybe all you own is term, maybe all you own is variable life, maybe all you own is whole life. And what I truly believe is that all of these different tools that are out there today, they have a place in a portfolio of life insurance. I own term insurance, right? That term insurance has its place for its short-term need in order to provide that death benefit for my family. I have indexed life insurance that has reduced death benefits in order to provide tax-free income down the road. I have overfunded indexed life insurance that I'll use as an alternative to keeping money in the bank, where I know I can earn a significantly higher rate of return that's more tax advantaged, give me a death benefit that I can use while I'm living for long-term care. You know, I have this portfolio because there's different types of policies that make sense given your specific goal.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And Casey, honestly, if I had not spent as much time around you as I have, I probably wouldn't have a portfolio of life insurance policies either. And I think it's one thing, you know.
I think you have the same exact kind of structure that I do.
I do. Yeah. And it's different purposes for each one of those policies. But I think too often we think of life insurance in this box and it's, hey, maybe we had a neighbor or a nephew or somebody that started selling life insurance and everybody's trying to sell us life insurance and then we kind of shrug it off. But at some point, it can be a very useful tool to wealth accumulation and retirement income strategies.
Well, and I know Dick doesn't feel this way, but my hope is that someday you have to be a financial planner in order to recommend life insurance. Maybe that eliminates the stigma as it actually becomes a tool of the financial plan. And that's kind of where Dick's going to go next with us. Dick Weber talks to us during our podcast interview. You can catch it at retirewithpurpose.com. Here about how to view life insurance as an asset class and how it can be leveraged as a tool in your greater investment portfolio.
For that kind of insurance, to think of it as an asset class is a significant transition in thinking. But so you've got these classic asset classes. You've got that conservative, you've got balanced, you've got aggressive, you've got very aggressive. You probably have assets across that spectrum because it makes sense to keep balance in an investment portfolio. The life insurance as an asset class says that when you consider whether it's a whole life policy or an indexed universal life policy, it really doesn't make a difference. That reserve, that cash value in that policy, because it's readily accessible to you, and after a reasonable period of time where the policy has become seasoned, that's an asset. When you apply for a mortgage, one of the lines on the application with the bank is the amount of death benefit life insurance you have, and most importantly, the cash value of that policy. Your bank considers it an asset. and you should too. All we're doing is putting a label on it. So the cash in a cash value policy is a conservative asset. And what we were able to do from a number standpoint is historically look at, certainly there's the stock market, but we're not talking about life insurance versus stocks. We're talking about life insurance versus other fixed return investments. And because of the tax advantages that have been given life insurance, both in terms of the growth of cash value and the ultimate tax-free nature of the death benefit itself, that life insurance actually has a somewhat higher internal rate of return.
So life insurance has a higher return of the cash value of the death benefit, and it's tax-free than what you have in your bond portfolio. I think you're seeing this more and more today that financial planners are turning to these tools because of low interest rates and because bonds don't necessarily make sense for everyone when we have these other tools. Next up, how do you leverage these tools during market volatility? What if we have a major market downturn? How should you leverage your cash value in your life insurance?
It's an uncorrelated asset. It's not correlated to the market. The market goes up, the market goes down. Whole life has mostly guarantees. So what happens if the market hits a 2008 skid patch? What happens if the market hits a February 2020 skid patch and takes a really deep dive? That, if you're living off the market because you've retired and now you're drawing down, you really don't want to take money out of the market when the market's going down. If you've got an uncorrelated asset, you can take money out of cash value and less money than you need because it's not taxable. So if I need 100,000, I really only need to take 70,000 out of cash value, live on that, wait for the market to inevitably recover, and then go back to the market. And that interaction is fundamental to life insurance as an asset class. They're not separate things. They're integrated things. And a well-seasoned whole life insurance policy can really do what we've done the math, can extend the value of a portfolio by many years for having that interaction between the two. We've gone back in time and used cash values to live on versus the market when it's declining, and it simply extends the length of time your portfolio can stay intact.
Well, and that's what Dr. Wade Pfau, professor of retirement income at the American College, shared in some of his latest research. He shares in that research, one, rather than using a traditional stock and bond mix, you could incorporate a guaranteed income stream, and that's going to increase your total income and the longevity of the portfolio. And in the last couple of chapters of his most recent book, he threw in there that you can also take a portion and allocate it to life insurance, and that elevates the total income and the total net worth that's passed on to your heirs and the sustainability of that portfolio, because we're using all the tools that are available to us in the financial world today.
Well, and he talked about it, an uncorrelated asset. I think too often we just think about our investments as stocks and bonds, and we just got to deal with the volatility in the stock market. We just got to deal with the low yields on our bond portfolios. That's all we got. But the reality is this is an asset class, no matter what we think about it. If you have questions or concerns or think that it's not, want to discuss it in great detail, I think it starts with education, starting to understand how these strategies work, how you can leverage them to improve your overall diversification.
Look, we're tool agnostic. We don't care what type of tools that we use inside of a portfolio, as long as they're the tools that you want to use. The reality is, if you're working with an advisor that doesn't have access to all those tools, then they're probably not agnostic, right? They're probably leading you towards the tools that they have at their disposal. If you want to sit down with an independent team that's going to review all of the tools that are available to you today and how they can best be leveraged to improve your situation, take your financial life to the next level, we have an offer for you today where you can sit down with a financial planner on our team, either in person or through a video meeting, and we'll walk you through this process to really take the guesswork out of financial planning for you. So give us a call right now at 866-482-9559, 866-482-9559. for a comprehensive financial review at no obligation. Stick around, because after this, we're going to answer the question, how can I make sure that the money I've saved will last my whole life?
You're listening to Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson. This is Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson.
Welcome back to Retire with Purpose, the science of retiring with confidence, the art of living with purpose. This is your host, Casey Weade. Joining me, my good friend and co-host, Marshall Johnson, here with me.
Hey.
And this is our opportunity to cover another weekend reading article with you. So if you don't know what weekend reading is, check it out at retirewithpurpose.com. That is 4 articles sent to your inbox every single Friday with commentary from myself, breakdowns, summaries, all information that is designed to help you stay on top of the latest trends so that you can make the best decisions during this time in your life. This article we're going to be highlighting with you now actually also appeared on our podcast, where we did a lengthier discussion into the specific strategies in this article. You can check it out on the podcast at retirewithpurpose.com or anywhere you consume your podcast. This article comes to us from MarketWatch, and it is titled, How Can I Make Sure That the Money I've Saved Will Last My Whole Retirement?
I love the question, right? I love the headline because it tries to deal with one of those questions we get all the time. How do I know? How do it know, Casey Weade, that it's going to last my whole life?
Well, and the questions being answered here are twofold. One, what's the best investment strategy for your portfolio? Should it be wealth-focused or income-focused? Number 2, what's the best spending strategy? Should you use a fixed spending strategy like the 4% rule? Should you use a flexible spending strategy, maybe some other strategy? And the article dives directly into some research that was conducted by Matthew Pellerin, a senior researcher at Dimensional Fund Advisors, who published this research paper titled Investing for Retirement Income, a comparison of asset allocations and spending strategies.
Yeah, I love a good scientific white paper that deals into research. I mean, this is where we live today. Is you got a lot of fluff that's out there on the mainstream media, but let me see the data, right? We're kind of nerdy over here. We like to dig into the numbers. We like to dig into the data. But I think, Casey, you start to lose some listeners right at the top when you start talking about, investment strategy. Should it be wealth-focused or income-focused? I mean, what does that mean? What does wealth-focused mean?
Yeah, we're really talking about an aggressive growth portfolio or an income-driven portfolio, right? Do you want to focus your portfolio on generating income, dividends, and interest, or do you want to put together or structure a portfolio that's really structured for long-term growth? You're going to achieve a higher rate of return if it's more wealth-focused or accumulation-focused. However, it may not be the best solution in retirement. Maybe a great solution on the way to retirement, but retirement's about one thing. It's about generating income. So is your portfolio generating income? And I think there were some really key takeaways from the research. Number 1, for all the different spending strategies that were researched, the income-focused portfolio was the best solution. It only had 25% invested in stocks at the retirement. The rest was in bonds. So 25% stock, 75% bond resulted in the best strategy. And I think the main takeaway there is that you don't have to be that aggressive in retirement to generate the amount of income that you want. And I think we get that wrong. We go, well, I've been 100% equities my whole life, and now I'm stepping into retirement, and I'll dial it back, but let's just go to like 75% equities. And you might find that the difference between those two, we shared some research last weekend that it really isn't going to impact your retirement income that much if you vary the amount of risk in that portfolio. It's going to result in a lot more volatility or ups and downs and stressful times in retirement if you take a more aggressive approach, but in the end, it's not really going to have much of an impact on the amount of income you're generating.
I think that is a really key takeaway, and it's something that I think will probably be a little surprising. We've always heard 60-40, 40-60, 50-50. This is kind of showing that, hey, you could have 25% in equities and still make things work really well and have a lower failure rate than the guy that's 50-50.
Yeah. It evaluated 3 investment strategies, 4 different spending strategies. It looked at 2 wealth-focused investment strategies, so a 50-50 mix, a 25-75 mix, and then it evaluated income-focused investment strategies where 25% was in stocks, the rest was in inflation-protected bonds. And I think the big takeaway of that particular piece of the article, we're looking at 3 investment strategies, 4 different spending strategies. I think you should ask yourself, what's my strategy? Right. Do I even have one?
Yeah, absolutely. Do I have a strategy? What does it look like? And if you don't, learning about these things and trying to understand. I think your book, Casey, is a great place to start when somebody's trying to think about these strategies, because it gets a little confusing because the terminology he's using for some of these strategies might be a little bit different than some of the strategies that you were taught in the Retirement Income Certified Professional designation.
Yeah, it's somewhat annoying. And a lot of it is marketing, right? You've got different advisors that are calling things different so that they sound different, or they're really just explaining the same thing.
Same thing.
They're just using a different term than someone else that they invented so that it sounds better. I think one of those things for many years was hybrid annuities. He's got hybrid annuities. That's a different type of annuity. It was just a fixed indexed annuity with an income rider, right? I just, all this fancy terminology, I wish we didn't use it. We had a standard across the industry of what we use, how we say it, and it would really greatly reduce the amount of confusion that people have around retirement planning.
Ultimately, as this article goes on, it's talking about what's the probability of achieving your retirement income goal. I think once you understand what you're trying to accomplish, how much income you're trying to create, how to go about doing that, they looked at these different strategies and tried to see which one produced the highest probability of success, Casey. And I found this pretty interesting. I actually went out and pulled up the article. I mean, this is a 38-page research document with lots of neat charts and graphs. I would encourage anybody that's really interested to go out and pull this study.
Yeah, I think one of the best parts of the article are when Pellerin and Rizova, the 2 researchers here, share that their general view at the end of the day is that when we look at retirement income as the goal, then of course you should measure your progress in terms of that goal. What's the probability of achieving that level of income throughout retirement? What are the risks around generating that amount of income throughout retirement? How exactly are you going to accomplish that end goal of income and certainty around that income? These are important conversations for you to be having with your financial planner, really nailing down the best allocation, the best strategy, the best spending strategy and investment strategy so that you can have the best odds of never running out of money. There is no best practice here, right? There's in past conversations with podcast guests, some of the things that have come up is that the financial planning is nuanced. There is no hard, fast, this is the best income strategy, this is the best investment strategy. It's nuanced, and researchers tend to disagree at the same time. You have Weade and Michael Kitz's that we've talked about this article in the past, talking about a rising stock glide path, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
You start retirement with more bonds, and then over time you spend down the bonds, and over time you actually take on more equity risk throughout retirement. We've discussed Van Harlow's research. It was released back in 2011, where he discusses
it's like the opposite,
appropriate range of equity allocation should be standard throughout retirement at 5 to 25%, right? And then you've got the 4-box approach. You have the bucket approach. You have the total return approach. And if all of these things are new to you, that's a red flag. If all of these things are new to you, you've never heard your advisor talk about the bucket approach, total return, the 4-box approach, the 4% withdrawal rule, then that tells me that you don't have an income strategy and your retirement's at risk.
Yeah, you talk about these different approaches, and some are going to be perfect for some. They're not going to be right for others. If you value low volatility, if you value not seeing that balance dip and dive and swing, and then you're gonna like some of these other income income-focused strategies. If you don't mind a little bit of volatility and you don't mind changing your spending habits, well, then other approaches are going to be right for you. But I think the neat thing is we're starting to see more math. We're starting to see more science around these data sets that are helping us try to educate people and help them understand what sort of approach is going to be best for them.
I was a little confused, and the article kind of wrapped up with that it makes less sense for those who are unconcerned about volatility of their assets or the aforementioned risks. I mean, who is not concerned about longevity, inflation, market risk, interest rate risk, inflation risk, unless you have your head buried in the sand? You have concerns about that, right? You are being kept up at night because you're unsure of how these things are going to play out in the market and ultimately how it's going to affect your bottom line. And now we can remove those concerns. The only reason you wouldn't have those concerns is if you put the plan in place that addressed each one of those concerns systematically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and my biggest problem was in the very last paragraph where he talks about, don't just jump strategies. Don't try this one and then that one. I see this all the time. I see people that are hung on to the wrong strategy for far too long. They've got a broken strategy, but yet they don't want to jump ship. And I think if you've got the wrong approach, or you're worried about having the wrong approach, or you think your advisor's taking an approach that just doesn't make sense for you, get a review. You can change
holding
direction.
on to the same approach is how people go bankrupt, right? You can't hold on to the same approach if it's not working. And with many counselors, plans succeed. That's why we have to continually seek other advice, second opinions. That's why you do the same thing when you have a major medical ailment. You just don't go to the first doctor that you see and take their word for it. You go out and get a second opinion, maybe even a third opinion. When our son was sick, we had a round table of a dozen different physicians that we worked with in order to make sure that all the heads at the table could create a better strategy for the survival of our loved one. And for you, this is a survival of your retirement. So if you haven't gone out, you haven't had a second opinion, this is your opportunity to get that done right here with us. We're offering a complimentary consultation. We'll take a look at where you're at today, and most importantly, where you want to be in the future. If you come in and visit with us and everything's hunky-dory, which maybe happens 5-10% of the time, it does happen, not often. If there's nothing that we can improve for you, then hey, we'll part as friends. If instead we sit down, evaluate your situation, and illustrate different changes that you could make that could improve your financial life, reduce your fees, increase your income, put together a tax strategy that delivers you a better net income. Then we'll move on to a second meeting and we'll start to design your very own Retire with Purpose framework. So give us a call right now at 866-482-9559, 866-482-9559, and we'll get you on the road to a better retirement. We'll be right back here with you next week on Retire with Purpose.
You've been listening to Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson. Investment advisory services offered through Howard Bailey Securities, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Working with Howard Bailey Securities, LLC cannot guarantee investment success or that specific financial goals will be achieved. Certified Financial Planner Board of Standards, Inc. owns the certification marked CFP and Certified Financial Planner in the U.S., which it awards to individuals who successfully complete CFP Board's initial and ongoing certification requirements. Howard Bailey Financial is a registered trademark of Howard Bailey Financial. All rights reserved. Information is not intended to provide specific legal or tax advice. Howard Bailey Financial nor its advisors are qualified to give tax or legal advice. You are encouraged to consult with your tax or legal professional for guidance on your individual situation. This radio show is a paid placement.